Hi everyone and welcome to Twisted History Vlog. Unfortunately we've had some issues with the YouTube stream. It doesn't want to play nice with me tonight. So I've decided we're going to do it anyway. So stay tuned and we will see what we get up to. Hey guys, so welcome to our channel. Like I said, this is going to be hopefully the first in a big series of vlogs we're going to do. So the premise is we're looking at doing them about once a month, and we'll be doing them on all different topics. So we'll be doing things like covering topics like murders in a little bit more depth. We'll be covering funky history that happens. We'll be covering anything that basically that you want us to go into a little bit more detail on. Now, the idea of doing it, and especially doing a live stream here on YouTube, is that well, we can get it to work. It will be a lot more interactive, so that you guys will be able to ask us questions as we're going and post questions below and all that sort of stuff. So that's the whole idea of it, and we're hoping that it will be hopefully it'll be a bit popular. Now down below you can see just below me my name here, wherever it is. It is. You've got all our social media details. So we've got things like our Facebook page, our how to find us on Facebook, how to find us on Twitter, how to find us on Instagram, and of course our webpage as well. Now, webpage is the key means of getting in touch with us for everything. It has every one of our tours up there ready for you to book, so you can actually book it directly online. And it also has our blog on it. Now, our blog is kind of exactly what we're going to be doing here. So I'm only going to touch really briefly on a few things tonight. Tonight, I want it to be more about introducing exactly who we are, what we do, and why we do the tours. So part of that is a bit about our company history. So the company has a fairly long history, but we're only going to concentrate in the last couple of years. So the last couple of years since I started running the company, we've been doing building on what the previous company had, and that is still providing quality ghost tours, murder tours, cemetery tours, and paranormal investigations all around the state of Victoria here in Australia. We are an accredited company, which means that basically we've reached a level with our business practices and planning and how we run the business that has reached a certain level that's ticked off. It's something we're actually quite proud of, and in fact we're one of only 2 ghost tour companies here in Australia that are actually accredited, so it's something we hold quite dearly. It also means that we appear up on the Trust the Tick website, which means that all the accredited tourism businesses throughout Australia all appear on that site, so you can go and find them wherever you want. The other thing that was probably really exciting as far as the business was concerned was last year we entered the RACV Tourism Awards in the Cultural Tourism section, and we were lucky enough to come away with the Bronze Award in those awards, which was really, really cool. So that was just a recognition that basically what we do with our tours, as much as they're scary and creepy, and we want them to be as well, they are all factually based in history. So if you've been on our ghost tours down at Geelong Jail, for instance, or up in Chinatown, all of our characters are based on real people. They are somebody who has actually worked or lived at the jail or in Chinatown throughout history, and we're using them to tell the story of those locations where we're going. So we're going to go through a little bit of a few of our locations, just so that we can show you a bit more. And I don't want to talk too long tonight because I don't want it to be, like I said, I don't want it to be all about me. But just to, one more thing before we go off onto the content is basically who we are. So I'm the director of the company. I have a background in tours for about 25 years or something like that. I know I don't look a day over 55, but anyway. So I have been researching family and local history since I was about 21, and I spent about 18 years doing volunteer tours down at the RAAF Museum down at Point Cook, so that's kind of where my basis is. I've also done a lot of public speaking over the years, on history and also on autism, because I have a son that is autism too, and that's how I got into public speaking. I started with this company about 6 years ago, and discovered how much fun it is getting into costume and pretending to be somebody else for a little while, and that's what we do, and it's something that all of our staff continue to do. So as far as our staff go, we think we've got about 10 staff at the moment across all of our locations. So we have ghost tour guides, we have paranormal investigators, we have our cemetery tour guides, we have our murder guides. So a whole range of different people, different backgrounds, different passions, and they all come together, and I'm really proud of our team and how good they are. They mesh so well together, and they all bring something completely different to each and every one of our locations, and hopefully that then translates into a really decent tour that you, our customers, are really excited to see as well. But we're going to go into our content, and what I'm going to do is I am going to go through some of the photos just of our different locations, just to show you some of the stuff where we've been. So this one here, of course, is the Geelong Jail. So Geelong Jail for us is literally home base. It is where the majority of our tours are held. So we're lucky enough to be able to run tours 7 nights a week down there, or have them available 7 nights a week down there. And we can run ghost tours and paranormal investigations each night. Last couple of years has been a little bit dicey, I suppose, with the future of the jail being completely up in the air. But the jail has actually been sold now to Montgomery International, and they will be continuing, allowing us to continue doing the tours. So that's all pretty exciting. So the next few months are going to be really exciting to see how things are going to progress from there. But these are just some of the shots from inside the jail. So this is the west wing. So down the back end there you can see our LOP cells. So they would have been LOP, loss of privilege, so solitary cells. So this were the punishment cells, the dark cells. So it was here that if you were a prisoner at the jail and you misbehaved for whatever reason, you could be sentenced to a period of time in those dark cells. They are very dark, they are very cold, and it would have been a horrendous place to be, especially in the middle of winter. There's quite a number of examples of people hurting themselves quite badly whilst locked in those cells, doing things like they would run from one side of the cell to the other until they fell down. Really, really brutal stuff. Now you've got to remember with this jail too that it was built in or started being proposed in 1849. And it had the first prisoners were entered into the jail in 1853. So it's quite an early prison. Now the prisoners before here would have been down in Hulks, down in Cryo Bay, and then the prisoners themselves actually took part in building the prison. Now the cells are actually quite dim and dingy, and not a lot of fun. Now talking about our guides, these are some of our guides here. Now we have here one of our new characters coming up will be Emily Green. We're about to introduce Emily Green in the next month or so. Sherry, who plays Emily Green, also plays Matron Inch at the moment. But Emily Green is a very interesting lady. She was so interesting, in fact, that it became a battle of wills between, I think it was Ballarat and Geelong, with the councils paying each other to keep her out of their way. She did end up in Melbourne, but she would do things like when she was in court, would just all of a sudden start screaming, or she would start singing, or just completely lose the plot. She was assessed for being a lunatic, but apparently she's not. She was completely sane. So she spent some time at Geelong Jail, and Sherry will be taking on her character in the coming months. Behind Emily Green, we have Governor Brody. Now Pablo plays Governor Brody. Governor Brody was the governor here at Geelong Jail for quite a long period of time. In fact, he oversaw all of the executions that took place at Geelong. He was a warden to start with, and then he was promoted to governor. Now, he didn't get along with everybody. There's a case in, I think it was 1866, where he was actually brought up on charges. And those charges related to the fact that one of the matrons wasn't very happy. Charlotte Staines was the warden's name. And she brought charges against Brody. And it was for things like using the paintbrushes out of the stores, and that Mrs. Brody had borrowed one of the prisoners to carry her shopping back from town, things like that. But all of the charges were dismissed, and along with Matron Staines, and Governor Brody, like I said, would oversee most of the, or would oversee all of the executions at Geelong Jail. Now, Geelong Jail had 6 executions in total. The first 2 executions were held out on a place called Gallows Flats, which is just across from the hospital. And it would be there that the gallows would be erected. So the 2 executions that took place there happened in 1854, and it was a double execution. That was the first and last public execution that took place here in Geelong. The other 4 executions all took place within the walls of the jail. So we have James Ross, who was executed in April 1856. We have Owen McCheyne, who was executed in October 1858. We have James Murphy, who was executed on November 1863. And the final execution was that of Thomas Barnard in October 1865. So the gallows are still there. We do still have a lot of activity on the gallows, interestingly enough, especially on our paranormal investigations. The spirit of James Murphy is believed to have still been hanging around up there. And yeah, so it can be quite an interesting thing. I'm fascinated with executions, and one of the things with executions, and you can see behind me, you see my 2 heads up here. So I have Dan Morgan, who was a bushranger. He was shot in 1865, and they made death masks. I'll tell you a little bit more about his story later because he relates to one of our other locations. And then this guy, sorry, I'm back to front, is Frederick Bailey Deeming. So this is a replica of his death mask. Now, Frederick Deeming is a serial killer, and he's a guy that we talk about on one of our murder tours up in Melbourne, but I'll get to that in a little bit later. Now, back to our stuff. Our other character there in the yellow and grey there is John Mchenry. So this is Andrew that plays John Mchenry. John Mchenry was a prisoner who was incarcerated back in the 1860s. And he was a bit of a cheeky bugger. He he ended up in the jail and decided he would leave. So he was helping with the building of the conversion of some of the buildings for the industrial schoolgirls when they came in. And one of the workmen left some clothes laying in one of the outhouses. And Mchenry went in there, he changed his clothes and basically walked out the front door. But he didn't want to get into trouble for stealing the prisoner's clothes. So what he did was to post them back at the governor's expense. So a bit of a cheeky bugger, this one. But Andrew does a really good job of portraying him. And yeah. So, and the lady at the front is Erin, who plays Matron Ellen Enright. Now, Matron Enright was the female matron, so female warden in charge, basically, in the 1880s. Now, she had a run-in with the then governor, Governor Peter Dwyer, and Governor Dwyer decided that he didn't like that the matron was arguing with him, and he had her incarcerated in the Kew Lunatic Asylum for several days before it was discovered that she actually wasn't insane. She was just having a moment of disagreement. Now, Governor Dwyer is an interesting character himself. He was actually shot at the jail. He wasn't killed. We had a gentleman who came down from Queensland who believed that Governor Dwyer had had an affair with his wife, and basically had an introduction to him through Dwyer's son, and instead of having it out, he pulled a gun and decided to try and shoot him. Now, Governor Dwyer, we actually believe his spirit is quite often still heard and seen in the front corridor. Quite often when we're sitting in the offices at night after tours, you will quite often hear footsteps up and down the wing, and we believe that that is Governor Dwyer. Now, next photo, these are just more of the guys in their characters. They come up so well. Their costumes are really wonderful. Now, we're going to go over 2 minutes. I've missed the first one. I'll come back to the Geelong Jail. There's some older photos I'll show you a bit later about what it was, but we'll get back to that one. And for some reason, I'll start in the middle of the slideshow. Now this photo here, this is the start of our Chinatown murder tour, or ghost tour now, that we do up in Melbourne CBD. So we start up at the corner of Spring Street and Little Bourke Street, and just across from the Princess Theatre here. Now this tour is going through just 3 blocks. Oh, there's the jail. That's just in a different order, that's all. So we'll jump back to the jail. Sorry about this. So this is a picture of the jail from 1861. So you can see it's quite open. You'll notice that there's actually not a wall around the jail at this point. But it does have the 3 levels on it as well. The other building, the main building that you can see there that's marked number 2. That's actually the Geelong Hospital, what was the original part of the Geelong Hospital, which of course is in front of the jail. But that's how it looked in 1861. You can see just how impressive and how big it was, overlooking the Geelong. This photo was taken actually down from the waterfront, looking back up at the jail, and you can see that it's quite an impressive building. This one is a photo that was taken in 1924, again taken from the hospital, looking back at the jail. Now the other building that you can see next to there is the Supreme Court House, and that played a rather important role in one of the biggest escapes that we had from one of the, well, not the biggest because there was only 2 people escaped, but it was probably the one that caused the most trouble. And that was in 1889 when we had 2 old prisoners called Clark and Farrell who managed to escape from the jail. And how they managed to escape was that Clark was actually quite a clever man, and what he was able to do was to build or make a skeleton key out of bits of brass and stuff that he'd found laying around. And he did all of this by sight. And then one night in October 1889, they disappeared, managed to use the key to get out after they'd hogtied the warden up who was on duty overnight, and they made their escape through the grounds of the courthouse next door. Now, what the interesting thing is that they were recaptured, by the way. They were brought back 3 weeks later, and both of them ended up dying at the Geelong jail. But what was the interesting thing is that when they left the jail, they actually threw a key away, and that key was found when the Supreme Court was demolished in the 1940s. And what they discovered is that key would have opened up every single lock in the jail back in the 1880s. So quite an impressive one. This is 1936, just an overview of the jail to see what you can see the exercise yards. You can see the fences that used to separate into the different exercise yards. So there must have been, I think there's about 6 exercise yards, I think, from memory. But it just gives you a bit of an overview. And of course, you should all recognise that one. That's our hero shot that we use for all our marketing with the Geelong Jail. Very impressive shot. So, yeah, so if you haven't come and done the Geelong Jail, as I said, we run the tours down there 7 nights a week with minimum numbers, which is only 4. So it's completely doable. Then we have our paranormal investigations that we're starting at 10 p.m. So we've actually just made a change so that all of our investigations start at 10 o'clock no matter what night of the week. So we used to run a Saturday night at midnight, but we've now decided to bring that back to 10 p.m. just to give it some uniformity and for people not to be confused with what's going on. So that's that one. And of course our towers. So we had an interesting thing happen. I was telling a lady last night about our towers. Every now and then we do usually about once a year, we do a live feed from the jail. Some of you may have seen it on our Facebook page. And what we do is we set up all the DVR cameras, and basically the staff come in and they play. We don't get to play with each other very often. So it's a time that we can actually get together and do our own thing like that. So we're doing one of those. We were waiting for what were we waiting for? But anyway, we started to hear a telephone ring on an old-fashioned phone. So we all raced down at the back once we worked out where it was. Very interesting when a noise starts happening in a jail when you've got a heap of investigators in, and they all went in 10 different directions. But what we found out is that we actually went out in the backyard because that's where the noise was coming from, and we could hear the phone ringing. As soon as we got outside, it would stop. We'd come back inside, it would start again. And it happened about 4 or 5 times, and this was before it was even dark, so it was actually a really interesting night. Staircase, so these are east-wing stairs. So if you've ever been on any of our tours, and you can see how worn these are. These are still the original staircase, so the ones that were built back in the 1850s. And you can see just how worn those stairs are. Now, excuse me, it's also down this end, the jail. Sorry, excuse me, in the east wing. that we had the industrial schoolgirls. So in the 1860s, early 1870s, they decided, because there were so many street kids, that the orphanages were overflowing, that they needed more room, and that because the jail was lying mostly empty, it would make sense to put the young girls into there. So we had girls aged between 3 and 16 that were incarcerated within the jail, and at the same time as the prisoners. So the prisoners were still there, which makes it really interesting. But on these particular scares, quite often we will see or interact with the spirit of who we believe is a young girl who would have been one of the industrial schoolgirls. So she's quite an interesting one. And there's the S we were showing before. Now we're going back through the same thing again. Let's just skip through. I don't know why I've ended up with the same photos. All my other photos have disappeared. Oh, that's not good. I'm sorry about that. I might have to come back and redo those later. So what I'll do is I might just go on to our other tours. So if you have a look down left hand side, that way, that way. I can't tell whether from my right, over there. You'll see listed on the side of the screen there. That's all of our major tours that we currently do at the moment. So you'll see there we've got Geelong Jail. We have our Chinatown ghost tour, which I was just talking about up in Chinatown. We have our Carlton and Melbourne murder tours. So they're a driving tour where we pick you up from either outside the old Melbourne jail or outside the old Russell Street Police headquarters. And we take you on a 2-hour or a 2.5-hour journey of some of the locations of where some of the murders have happened around Carlton and in Melbourne general. So the Carlton one, we go visit about 20 locations, and they're all not necessarily the most infamous murders. They some of them are just people that, you know, basically the case, I suppose, has interested us. That's why we've researched it. And that's contained very much in Carlton. We don't touch on the underbelly too much. We do very, very, very briefly. We tend to concentrate on more of the historical murders. So we have murders from 1875 up until 2004, I think is the latest one, which was Benji Benjamin, of course. Now the Melbourne Murder Tour, that's more our infamous cases. So with that one, we go to locations like the Russell Street bombing, we go to Hoddle Street, we go to the Queen Street Massacre, we also visit the location of the Gun Alley murder, we visit Frederick Bailey Deeming's house, where he murdered his wife Emily in 1891. We go to the location of the Easy Street murders in Collingwood in 1977. So all the more, I suppose, the more infamous and more, I suppose, a little bit more recent murders than that too. Now, on our murder tours, we're not just talking about blood and gore. We try to be really respectful of both the victims and the perpetrators. We're not there to tell you anything more than the facts of what happened in the case at the location where they happened. You know, and I like to think that we're fairly respectful when we're doing those ones. I'm actually doing a Melbourne one tomorrow, so which will be fun. Now, our other sort of newish branch of the business is our haunted hotels, so Australia's haunted hotels. So with that one, we go around to a range of hotels. We have 3 regular hotels at the moment, but we're also open for more. So if you've got a hotel that you'd like us to come and visit and come and investigate, just let us know. You can leave some comments down below or on Facebook, or send us an email. We'd love to hear about the different hotels that you've got. But the current ones we go to now are the Royal Hotel up in Seymour. We go to the Kangaroo Hotel in Malden, and we go up to the Railway Hotel in Denali. Now, Denali is a fantastic little town. We went up there for the world's largest ghost hunt last year, which I'll explain a little bit more about that, what we do with that. But yeah, very, very great town, very welcoming. Karen at the Railway has been extremely welcoming for our lot, and letting us explore upstairs and down the cellars when it's been quiet, to see that who we can pick up around. And I must admit, it's never disappointed. We've always picked up something. The ghost, or one of the spirits there that I quite like, is that there's a spirit of an old lady up on up in one of the bedrooms, who, if the bed's not in a particular place, she will push you out of bed because you're in her way. Kangaroo Hotel in Malden is another really, really old pub. So all of our pubs we like to go to are the more colonial ones. So they've been built in the 1860s, 1850s, and have been there for that period of time. So they have a lot of history to them. And the reason that we love doing hotels is because hotels are one of those places that always have a lot of energy attached to them. So, you look at your drunks with your bar fights. You look at in the mining towns where it would be where the miners would go once a week to go and have a bath, go and have a decent meal, perhaps get some of their other needs met. So there's always lots of interesting stories and interesting characters attached to hotels, and that's why we love going to them. Now, personally, I love these hotel tours. It's the one time where we get to chance to really connect with our customers and have a chat over dinner before we actually go out and investigate. And that gives a chance for our customers to actually be able to ask us a lot of questions, and any of those questions that they've been wanting answered, that we can actually answer those questions, and casually they can get to know us a bit better and all that sort of stuff too. So it's been a really, really good one. The Royal Hotel at Seymour, it's a really interesting one. So that pub was built in 1848 initially, and we used Dan Morgan over there. I got it right. I'm back to front. Dan Morgan. So Dan Morgan was a bushranger. Now I was going to tell you his story. So he was a bushranger who was shot up at Peachy Harbour Station in 1865, and it was decided that by Dr. Dobbin, who Beechworth fame, who it was decided that he would go to do a death mask, which was quite common in the 1800s. So the reason for the death mask is that they thought if they could look at all the lumps and bumps on your skull, the angles of your cheeks, your nose, all that sort of stuff, that it was thought that this related to different areas of the brain, and they would be able to work out exactly why you'd done what you'd done as a criminal. So they decided to remove Morgan's head, amongst other body parts, and decided to box it up and send it down to Professor Halford at the University of Melbourne, who was the new professor of anatomy down here at Melbourne. So back in those days, this was how they learnt about the human body and how it worked. So they boxed Morgan's head up, they sent it down. Now, of course, it was a long trip in those days, and they stopped at one of the Cobb & Co stops, which happened to be the Royal Hotel. And the urban legend is that Dan Morgan's head was placed upon the bar that night. Well, last week, a few weeks ago now, I think, when were we up there? I think it was the 18th of May, we were up at Seymour last, and we actually took this replica death mask up to the Royal Hotel and placed Dan Morgan's head back on the bar. So, and we had some really interesting stuff happen. Now, the other quirky thing, which was really, really funny, is that we had they had guests staying there that night who were actually named Morgan, which I find really, really interesting. So that was a really, really, really interesting night. So we got, I think at one point they asked whose head is this, and they got back Morgan through the spirit box. So there's a lot of other really, really interesting things that happened. So please, if you feel like it, come and join us on one of our hotel tours. Like, they're really, really nice locations, brilliant meals. Oh my God, the food is awesome, and it's a bonus on top of the tour. So, and that one is actually includes dinner in your cost of your ticket. Actually includes dinner as well. And our other tour that's just about to come back online on the 15th of June is our Castlemaine Cemetery tour. Now, this is a more, it's not so much our creepy, one of our creepy tours. It's going to be done by a costumed guide, taking on a character from Castlemaine. But it's more looking at the history of the cemetery and looking at the stories that some of the headstones tell. So we're looking at the symbology on the headstones and explaining what all of those sorts of things mean. So that one's just about to come online. So we had we had it started and that stopped, and now we're restarting again. And of course, then we've got our paranormal investigations. So as I said, we run investigations down at Geelong Jail most nights of the week. Again, it's minimum numbers of 4. But we also accept if you've got a private group that wants to come and do an investigation, either 2 hours or longer. I recently had one that did an 8 8 hour, I think. No, it was 10 to 4 anyway. We're doing one, which is a private group. Please get in touch with us. We're happy to try and facilitate access for your group to come and investigate at our jail too. I think that's really interesting, and I think it's good for our staff as well to collaborate with other paranormal teams. And then the exciting thing is we've got 2 new paranormal locations that will be coming online by the end of July. So we're still in the process of setting them up at the moment and doing our research and our initial investigations with the staff at both locations. And once that's done, then we'll release the dates. I think I've tentatively put in a start date of the 20th of July for one, and I think it will be around the same time for the second location as well. But they're both on the western side of Melbourne, both about half hour, 40 minutes from the jail. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to those ones coming online. I think everyone's going to really enjoy them. One of them is going to be very different to what we usually do, so which will be really good. Now, on top of all of that, we also do some special events because they are so much fun. Some of you would have been on our adult Easter egg hunt, because why should the kids have all the fun at Easter with the chocolate? So that one we do on Easter Sunday night each year. I think next year it's April 12th, I think. The date's up on our webpage anyway. Check on our webpage, you can have a look. And then this year we're bringing back our Haunted Halloween Zombie Run. So that's always a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun with that. It's a lot of work to set up, but oh my God, it's so much fun. So we're looking at how we can up the ante a little bit for our guests this year. So in the processes of planning, we're already starting to plan that. And then at the end of September, we do, oh, excuse me, once again, we're taking part with our world's largest ghost hunt. So that is, for those who don't know, it's an international event. So it's actually an American event started by Bob and Maria Schmidt over in America. And the idea of this is to get teams worldwide all working together in the seeking of connection with spirit. And it's believed that by all of us investigating at exactly the same time, that we can uplift the vibrations and get a better connection with spirit. So that's kind of the basic gist of behind it. This will be the 4th year that it's running, and we've been involved since the very start. So this will be our 4th year running it. This year we're hoping to head back up to the border, up to the Surfeston railway station again. So that is up near the border of South Australia and Victoria, and it was where once there was a big dispute about the border and which actual side of the border it belonged on, whether it was South Australian or Victorian. But the other thing was when back in the olden days when they used to have to change trains, so there was a different gauge for each state. So when you got to the border, you'd have to get off one train and get back on another to get onto the correct gauge. Now, because of that, there was a customs situation they had to go through. So up at Surfeston, they've got this beautiful ballroom. They have there's cells, there's a morgue, there was a refreshments room, all very ornate and very beautiful. So we've done a couple of investigations up there now, but it's a fantastic place. So we're hoping to head back up there. So we'll be doing, hopefully doing one on this Saturday night. I think it's the 28th of September. It's grand final weekend. So if you're not into footy, come and investigate with us. So we're doing one on the Saturday night, and then we're doing one on the Sunday lunchtime, which that is the one that we do in conjunction with America. So 10 p.m. in America equates to about 1 o'clock here, depending on whether daylight savings has started or not. So that all works really well. So that's about it from me. So we don't want to carry on too much longer, but if you have enjoyed our chat and enjoyed our little chat and you want to come and actually do a lot more with us, like I said, I'm planning on doing these once a month. We've had quite a few technical glitches tonight, but I'm going to get it worked out so that by we come back next time, that we will be able to actually do a live stream so that you guys can actually ask me questions and interact with me, because that was supposed to be the whole idea, not just me sitting here talking at you. But Up above me you can see the subscribe button, and you can also see the thumbs up. So, you know, hit the subscribe with the bell notification if you want to know when we're going to go live. And also please give us a thumbs up. I know this is probably not a very interesting video tonight, but we will be getting on to a lot more. So that's about it from me. So I will leave you here. I'll leave this up for a few minutes. So this is all our different tours and locations that we're doing, and of course all our social media handles and our website. So if you want to know anything twisted, or you want to get totally twisted with us on a tour, please do come and visit us. We'd love to entertain you. But that's it from me for tonight. And yeah, so hopefully we'll see you back in about a month's time. I think our first video we're going to do is going to be on this bloke, Frederick Deeming. So he is a very, 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 very interesting character, and one of my favourite serial killers. So I think we might do an in-depth look at him, because there's some really, really funky stuff attached to his case. Not aside from the fact that he was suspected of being Jack the Ripper by some people. He was actually interviewed for that by the Victorian Police before he was executed on the behest of the London Police. So yeah, but that's about it. So that's all from me from tonight. So I hope you've enjoyed. I hope this hasn't been too boring for you. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you next time. Bye.